Today's video is going to serve as my definitive Battlefield 2042 review so far. I say so far because we know that Battlefield will evolve over time, sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way. So today's video is going to go lengthy. We're going to talk all about Battlefield. I will post timestamps in the description box below so that you can jump to the section that you find most important. Now, I'll start off by saying this. Battlefield has had a very, very interesting development cycle leading up to this point. And if you look at previous Battlefield games, you have to be aware that Battlefield has always been somewhat reactive to the world around them. This is frustrating. I think the Battlefield brand in of itself doesn't need to mirror emulate anything else, yet DICE is always trying to replicate success elsewhere, and a lot of times that fails. When you look at how great Battlefield 4 was, which to me, the definitive Battlefield experience, and you look at how polished that game was in terms of team play and destruction and levolution and gun modification, character modification, it really had everything going for it. Even had a single player experience too, which that's kind of hard to find in today's games. But that game was so good. Then DICE decided that Call of Duty style gameplay, run and gun, was more important. And we got a couple of bad Battlefields in there. We got Battlefield 5, we got Battlefield 1. They introduced this very bizarre Battle Royale mode, which was half-baked, and very clearly half-baked, by the way. They emulated the success from Call of Duty World War II, and they tried to replicate that time period. Nobody wanted that. So thankfully, at least they got this right. DICE is kind of doing their own thing again, and Battlefield 2042 is a representation of that. It is obviously takes place in the future, so you have more modern weapons, modern vehicles, modern objectives, and they did try to stay true to what I would call the Battlefield brand. That is this over-the-top, large world, mega chaos server in which you can do so many different things at so many different times. And you're going to notice that in my gameplay today. Sometimes I'm driving a vehicle on my own. Sometimes I'm assaulting a point on my own. Sometimes I'm in a helicopter laying fire down or hanging out the window marking targets for a pilot who will lay fire down. Sometimes I am hiding inside of a building in these very intense gunfights. You can be anywhere and get into so many different game styles. There is no single way to play Battlefield. If you want to snipe, you can snipe. If you want to play run and gun, that exists as well. If you'd rather be more of a support person or an operator or a medic, all of these wonderful things exist for you. And I love that about this game because it makes the game feel so much more dynamic and alive, and everybody's experience will really be cultivated to how they want to play the game. And I love that. The review I have broken down into a couple different sections here. I'm going to talk briefly about the specialists first because the specialists are something new to Battlefield. Then I'm going to talk about some customization, particularly with guns, vehicles, talk about the game flow, the game modes, and the overall performance of the game, both audio and visual. And this is all on PC, by the way, the right way to play it, of course. Specialists are something new to the Battlefield universe. Unlike other previous Battlefield games where you were in a class system based on your kit, Battlefield is going to allow you to have the most customization ever. Specialists range from characters who tend to favor more medic type roles. You have characters who favor more recon or run and gun. You have characters who are more defensive in nature. And each of these specialists has a unique ability about them that no other specialist has. And by forming a good squad with different specialists and playing as a group, I think you'll be very successful. I personally like Boris. Boris is the defensive specialist. He has the ability to put down a sentry gun, which not only marks targets for you, but also fires on targets for you. It's incredibly, incredibly useful from a defense perspective because you always have a second set of digital eyes on the battlefield. And you're going to be able to cover large areas and defend very well with good fortification because your enemies are going to have to shoot at both you and your sentry gun. I like that about Boris. He's fun. There are other specialists, though, too, if you prefer other types of abilities. Like, as I said, there's medics, there's people who do different types of resupplies, and there are grappling hook guys. You will find something you like. The cool thing is you're not tied to your specialist. Specialist is just one part of it. any gun is available for you to choose, and there's a litany of guns with a litany of specializations the more you use them. That's a nice feature. So no longer do you have to be a medic that is just not... Back in old Battlefield games, medics were typically carrying SMGs or handguns because they were supposed to be up close and personal, right? A medic runs up to you, they're healing, they're doing quick fire. But what if you want to be a medic sniper? Well, I mean, maybe that doesn't make a whole lot of sense because who are you going to heal when you're 150, 200 yards away from the battlefield? But that's your choice. You can do that. And this game breaks down all those barriers and allows you to play as any type of character with any type of weapon. And it's really appreciated. It's going to give you the best feeling Battlefield experience that I think you'll have had in terms of not feeling handcuffed by, oh, I really wanted to play a tank hunter sniper, but that didn't exist. Or I really want to be a medic with a shotgun. Well, you can now. You can do anything you want. I love that. This feature to me shouldn't be that revolutionary, and yet for some reason it is. And I don't know why Battlefield games didn't do this before, but I'm glad they went in this direction. On top of all of the guns, you're going to get some amazing vehicles to play with, too. You see me using some of them here. You have hovercraft, you have tanks, you have actually multiple types of tanks. You have Harrier jets that have multiple people, like an Osprey-type jet that has multiple stations on it. Different gunners, pilots, bombers, that sort of thing, like a flying fortress. You could pick up small, just like vehicles that are out in the street. Like you could pick up a pickup truck from some guy and just drive it around. It doesn't have any weapons on it, but it'll get you around quickly. These are all wonderful things that have been included in the game. And the nice thing is there are a litany of vehicles to select from. And because of the way the specialization system works, no longer are engineers the ones that are responsible for carrying large ordnance to destroy vehicles. Anybody can destroy a vehicle. While vehicles do, I think, at times feel a bit overpowered, it is nice because you are constantly having to be on your guard because anybody can be a tank hunter. Anybody can be an anti-air. Anybody can be that specialist that, like Sundance, who has special heat-seeking grenades that destroy vehicles. So vehicles, I think, get a hard check in this game, and I like that. And I think in previous Battlefield games, sometimes vehicles were a little too powerful. Thankfully, I think they fixed a lot of that, and that is really, really good. So what are you going to be doing in this game? What's really the game flow of this? Well, the game flow boils down to a lot of running and gunning, right? I mean, I think that's kind of the point of Battlefield, and capturing points, bleeding enemy tickets, going where the action is, setting up strong defenses if that is your thing, or moving on to the next thing if that is your thing as well. Unfortunately, the game does have a tendency to really rely on your squad, sometimes a little too much. Now, as with any game, if you're playing with your friends, it's going to be a phenomenal experience. That goes without saying. However, in Battlefield, there are a lot of instances in which you're playing with your friends, or not playing with your friends, and you're assigned random squad mates, and they're not that great. And that's not a bad thing. I'm not picking on players who aren't as good as me. The problem is if your team, like in this match here, is subject to kind of hanging on the back lines and farming easy kills, and you prefer to get up close and personal, well, too bad. If the points aren't available to spawn on and squad mates are behind places you don't want to spawn, you're going to have to do a lot of traversal on your own. And that's frustrating. That shouldn't be that way. But unfortunately, that is the system in which Battlefield works. They force you to really kind of spawn in with your squad and play with your squad. And I think there will be times that you're playing as a single player, you know, squatted with other people, and it's very clear your squad is not working together, and you're going to have a rough time. There's natural squad bonuses that work together. As for example, squad bonuses, obviously, you can spawn on each other, you can resurrect each other, even if you're not a medic class. You can call out waypoints and objectives to each other, and you can't do that with just random teammates. Obviously, if they're on your side, they're not going to hurt you. However, squad mates get a preference in your gameplay experience. So I think the game flow suffers slightly because of that. But in instances when you are playing with your friends, or in instances in which a squad is kind of aligned with your goals, it is incredibly fun to work together as a four-person team and take on large objectives with ease at times, with real tactical insertion, spawning in the correct places, arming each other, giving each other health and ammo packs, and covering each other, calling out good objectives, and working well together as a unit. And that's when this game really, really shines. And that's why, and I know this is true of every game, playing with your friends in this game is significantly more fun than when you're playing alone. Because the truth is, when you're playing alone, you're going to be subject to that nonsense. As far as game modes go, right now, the only one that matters is Conquest, and that's really been true of everything. It's going to be a giant map with tons of zones to collect and to hold. The more zones you have, the faster you bleed enemy tickets. When their tickets reach 0, you win. There are other modes too. There's an attack and defend mode. There's also the Battlefield 2042 basically throwback mode, which includes custom browsers and custom rule sets that you can apply. Those are fun too because it gives the old Battlefield games a fresh coat of paint. However, I would argue if you really are missing some of those nostalgic maps, Caspian Borders, perfect example, go back and play Battlefield 4. The game still has a vibrant community. It's available on Game Pass or Origin Premier Access, and even if you don't have either of those, it's probably less than $5 at pretty much any major retailer, at least virtually at this point. If you miss those old games, go back and play them. Don't worry about trying to play the new game with the old stuff. Go enjoy the old games for what they are. That's why, to me, this mode isn't that exciting, and I don't really care about it. If I miss the retro stuff, I'll go play the retro stuff. So to me, I spend most of my time in the traditional domination mode, in which you're basically trying to take over large areas of the map and hold them from enemy counterattacks. The maps are designed in a very, very fluid and fun way, in which you're going to have natural places that are easy to defend. You're also going to have natural choke points and places where the battle really gets hot and heavy. And I think that ties into what I said earlier about this game can be played pretty much any way you want it to be. So if you prefer that more aggressive, bombs flying over your head constantly, people are dying around you, lots of explosions and actions, yeah, go for those middle points where you know they're going to be strongly contested. But if you prefer to take a more casual approach, maybe go lay back a little bit, maybe pick a sniper class or some sort of artillery and kind of sit in the back lines and just kind of shoot over into the audience. Lastly, there's also that alternative where you're kind of a stealth one-man gang and you're commandeering vehicles and you're working your way behind enemy lines to either capture points or to pick off their supply lines, which is a ton of fun, especially if you have a suppressor, because it's so funny when an enemy is looking around and they can't find you and you're just kind of laying prone in the middle of the forest, just dropping people as a sniper. It is really a ton of fun. So I think that a lot of those game modes do really play well into the flow and into your character class, and I like that. But it's not all roses, and I want to wrap up this video by talking about the performance. I am playing on an NVIDIA RTX 2080 Ti. Now, I do typically use ultra-wides, understanding that does decrease my memory, or I should say, decreases my performance due to the large amount of memory that I'm going to be burning just to fill all these pixels. I run by a native 3440 by 1440 resolution, so it is significantly more pixels to push. However, this game runs poorly. All of the footage you see here, I'm running on either medium or low, and you can see by my display settings in the upper right-hand corner, my computer still struggles. This is unacceptable. This game is obviously very, very skewed towards graphics, at least in terms of explosions and sound effects and sheer amount of enemies and volume. You're fighting massive, massive arenas with tons of stuff going on. That said, they have been able to pull this off before. And I go back to Battlefield 4, which was the best Battlefield experience, and the sheer amount of what they called Levolution in that game, the world that destroyed and changed in radical, violent ways around you, and how fluid that game ran. And you look at by today's standards, and the game just doesn't run well. The optimization isn't there. Now, if you want a smooth 60 frame per second experience, you're going to be like me, and you're going to run the game mostly on low settings, even with high-end hardware. And this is something that I think really needs to be addressed. It was something, unfortunately, I noticed in all of the open and closed betas that I participated in, and unfortunately, it's something that has yet to change. On the console, I think it does look a little bit better, but be aware it's not a smooth 60 frame per second experience. You're going to get a lot of snags and hiccups, and it could be jarring. When you play a game that's silky smooth, like Halo Infinite, which right now is just beyond beautiful, obviously, radically different game, obviously much smaller arena, but when you come from that level of graphical fidelity over to this, expect to be disappointed, and I hope DICE fixes that soon. And then lastly, the audio. The audio in these games are nothing short of amazing. They continue to remain amazing. There are no piped in sounds. So everything you hear, everything that, all the explosions in the world around you, these are all things that are created by other players. It really gives a great sense of battle when you hear explosions or machine gun fire out in the horizon, and you know that it's not just piped in audio effects like they do in Call of Duty. These are all generated by other players. They sound great. The sound effects in Battlefield have always been world class. And I think that even though the graphics are suffering a little bit right now, the audio fidelity remains true. So, what would I rate this game? Well, I would say that it's definitely fun. It needs a lot of work, but I still think there's a lot of fun to be had. Because of the sheer amount of customization, because of all of the embedded game modes that exist in terms of how you want to play the game, no two matches will ever be the same. No two experiences will ever be the same. You got to find what makes you happy and go off in that battle and find it and enjoy it. And I think that you'll get a lot more enjoyment out of this game. I do recommend it. I think it's fun. I'm not saying that it's perfect. I know they're going to make improvements, and I can't wait to see what those are. But for now, that wraps up my definitive review on Battlefield 2042. I hope you guys found this video informative. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.